we've got to get right into this and get it out, haven't we? So best thing to do with that is iron it. What a prat. I should have looked at that twice, but there you go. So, A post trims, that's today's job. We'll probably only do the one, but we'll see how we get on. But yeah, brass sheet, and we'll have to have a good look before we start working out what we're doing. So we'll try them on the car, see what we've got. These are off of the other car I'm restoring, as I've spoken about this before. And we've got some sort of discrepancies here already. I don't know if you can see from there, but the difference in the thickness of this one there and that one there. So something's going on there, which we'll talk about in a minute. But that's sort of, again, what I keep saying. You can't just copy them. You've got to work out what you need. So let's have a better look on the car. Right, so I think you'll have to come round here so you can see what I'm looking at. But this is what we're trying to do. So we got this sits in here, curls round under there. We've got to get it about the right height. It's got to line up here. We'll have a look at that in a minute. But what I'm checking is how well this edge fits inside here, which it does. It's reasonable. I think we can just go with what we've got. So we can take that. As I think that'll be all right. I mean, you get a little trim that goes over this, little rubber trim, so that'll cover that up. So I think we'll go with this being about right there, because I think it will come about right. What's interesting, that's that gold that I was on about last time. That was its original colour. And if we will look down here on the door, we got a bit more of it there, and then it went red. What they call retail red when it's Ferrari. So like, this is a Maserati, and it's looks like a more sophisticated colour than Ferrari retail red. So I think that was probably looked all right in that, but it's going back to gold. That's the way I want it to be, and that's the way it should be. That's how it left the factory, with black colony leather. So yeah, so that's all right. Check that edge, I'm fine with that. But what we've got here is we've got this edge is completely odd. So there we are. I'll take the light off because we can do it without the light now, I think. But yeah, it's all thin down here, it's all thick here. Now this trim's been mucked about with. This is off another car, as I said. So I'm going to have to correct this for the other car, for the restoration on the other one. Now, we're looking at how it fits to work out what we replicate. We're also, trying to work out how they made it, because we're going to replicate it. So if we can work out how they did it, we can sort of do the same. So looking at this, we got shrinker marks in here, and these are the archetypal Eckhold shrinkers, which is what they used. So there's not many shrinker marks, so that leads me to believe they haven't done too much putting round in here. So I think that's one piece, and they've just tweaked it a bit to get it just right. And looking down inside the inner edge of this, right inside the join there, along this edge here, it looks to me like there's solder in there. It looks to me like that's two pieces soldered together. Now, I can't be sure of that. What I'm going to do with this one, this is going to go off to the platers and they'll strip the chrome off it, and then we'll see what's actually underneath there. But with the chrome on there, we can't really see. But I suspect we're going to have to do, some repairs on this one when I get into the restoration of the other car, and with the chrome off it we'll know for sure. But that's not how I'm going to do these. Now I know I said you've got to work out what you've got and try and do something similar, but I'm going to do this in one piece and then I'm going to pull this round with a shrinker, which is what I did last time I made these. Now the reason I'm doing it that way is trying to get a soldered edge all the way along here is going to be awkward. It's going to take a lot of shaping up after it's soldered. You know, I don't think it's the way to do it for my purposes, and I think we can get away with that not being quite so sharp anyway. So I don't think it'll be a problem. That's the way I'm going to do it. I've already made 2 of these for the other car like that. That's the way I'm going to continue. But once I get to repairing this, it'll be interesting to see if this is, as I suspect, soldered on and then filed up. I mean, there's little divots in here. I reckon that's how they did it. So I'll have to make a new bit for that and solder it on. Trying to join it here and just put a little bit on it would be a right pain. Really difficult to get rid of that. Rather than making a new one, I would like to salvage it, because obviously it's nice to save what you've got. So anyway, so that's that bit. So we'll have to start working out some dimensions of what we're going to do. So let's have a look on the bench. Here's our plate we're going to use, and we want to get 2 of them out of this. So yeah, here's a good example of these shrinker marks. You can see it better on this side. Now this is for the other side. I'll probably take dimensions off this, because obviously we've got, that's about right. I've already tried this on the other side, so I know we're roughly about right. So I know what we've got. So I think we'll be okay with that. So let's take that as our datum, and then we'll reverse it onto this one. So the first thing we want to do is check this edge. Now we know we're going to use that. Let's put that one on top of there. They're pretty much the same, you see. They're pretty much, you know, I mean, you can see there is differences. Look, you can see the difference in where that goes from the top there to where that is at the bottom, and it's very clear how that's thicker and that isn't. So, you know, there's something going on there, but we'll work, you know, we don't need to copy these exactly. We're going to copy them and use them as datum, but that edge, those are the same. I think we've got enough here to say, look, they're pretty much, yeah, pretty much the same. There's a bit more metal on that one there, you see, but I think we can go with that. We can go with making this using that one to make these, I think. So we'll do that. So this, the way that fitted, that would cover half of that side trim. So we want to sort of work out where that is. So we'll be taking measurements from here and see how we got, what we got. So according to that, we got about, that comes out at 37, just not, yeah, 37 and a half I'd have said. But anyway, let's take that as 37. Let's take one in the middle, give us another datum. That one comes out at 40 there. So it widens up as it goes. And let's have a look at here what we got. That's coming out at 39. Now this isn't allowing for the thickness of the metal, which is 1 mil, because obviously that's the inside edge of that where the fold would be. You've got to allow for a metal thickness, so you have to remove that off of it, off of the size. But that's, you know, I'm trying to get an idea of what we got. Now I want to make this parallel, because I think that's how we're going to want it to be, to fit. So I think what we'll do is we will have a look at this on the car in a minute, take some more dimensions before we leap into it. So what I'll need is a set square for that. Right, so here we are on the other side. Now we haven't got a gutter trim here, so we're going to have to allow for, you know, take a bit of a guess on that. We're just trying to work out rough sizes of this, because we're talking about how this being parallel or not. So if we push that in like that, and then what were we saying? We were saying it was, I think we were saying it was thicker up here, weren't we? And we were saying, it went to about 40 in the middle, didn't it? So what we want it to do is we want it to look nice as it comes down this edge. So if we went at 40 there, so if we went to 40 there, you go to 40 there, it's going to be a bit too far over there at this edge, at the top there. And then if we go over to here, and we're looking at about 40 there, see, it sits all right there, it doesn't sit too bad. So that, yeah, we want it to be about halfway over this trim. That's what we're sort of looking for. So let's have a look with the set square against there. So this is imperial and this is metric, so I'm going to use this to set it to 40 mil, which sounds a bit daft, but that's because I've got this. This is an imperial set score. I've got a metric one, but it's up in the office, and I keep it clean and out of the way so it doesn't get all rusty and mucky, which is a bit silly really, because I should be using it. So if we set that to 40, that shows us rough. I know it's not curling over, but it's giving us an idea of what we're dealing with here. So it's giving us an idea of where it's going to come to. So it's off of this edge, isn't it? So at 40, it's going to sit about right. Now I know that's not quite right because we had a curvature on that, so it's going to be, you know, it's going to shorten it slightly because it's going around a curve. But I'm just trying to get an idea of how square this is, this edge. So another way of checking that would be just to push that against that trim like that, lock it off and have a look. So see, it's shorter up here. Yeah, so it does change quite a bit as we go down. Look, you see, so it's a good 3 mil away there, I'd have said, something like that, maybe even 5. Anyway, so it does alter a bit. So, you know, some of that's going to be due to the shape this comes out like that, then it curls round into it. So, you know, that's not a straight edge. So as you can see, you know, so we're tipping over a corner to do that. So yeah, it does alter what we're dealing with. So it's not simple, but we'll work that out. So yeah, you can see what I'm trying to end up with. We want to end up with that in about the middle of this trim. So I think we got to allow extra. I think we're going to have to make this with some extra on it, get it to roughly the shape we want, and then we're going to have to cut it back to it. So it'd be nice to say, cut that down a straight edge, you know, we've got a nice guillotined edge, but I think we've got to allow a bit extra and then trim it back to, you know, once we get it trialled on the thing, because we can screw it into place and then we can take a line through here down to there, and then we can mark it and see what we want. So that's the way I'm going to do. So we want to allow extra on it. So if we were going off there, so if we stood 40 up that end, and this end we were allowing something similar. Let's see what we're allowing. See, 40 only brings us there, so we want to leave more like 45 this end. Yeah, so I think we're going to want, I think if we go, I don't want to taper it at this on the guillotine, I want to allow a bit extra, so I think if we went 40, if we go 47, and if we did that one at the same, yeah, we're going to have plenty of material, right, that allows us, so we know roughly what we're doing there. So I'm gonna use this, we're happy with that shape, what the metal we've got here, but this one we're going to want to do at 47. So allow 47 on that, because we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this with a fold. I'm going to put a nice fold in there on the folder, and then I'm going to actually shrink this round to gain that curvature. So I'm doing it a little bit different way to them. I reckon that's the way to do it. That's what I did last time, so I'm going to do the same. You know, if it worked then, it'll work again. Right, let's go and mark this sheet out, and then we can cut it to size. If we're going to do this the way I think, and we're going to make this curvature here by shrinking this round, a bit like we did on the gutter. So we need these dimensions of what this is. So obviously when you shrink that round, this edge, it's going to make this one curl. So we need to allow for that. We need to be thinking about what that's going to do when we get to it. But when we get to this end, you know, we're not going to be putting that round so much. Obviously it's got this kick up here we've got to think about. We're not trying to do all that with a shrinker. So we probably don't want to take a straight line when we cut the whole thing, because this bit won't move when we shrink it. You see that shape there? See, that curls round a bit there. So I don't think that's quite, you know, just a straight bit of metal there. that's been shrunk round. You know, we're not going to do it, well, there's a way where this is made differently. So yeah, so we're going to take this, we're going to offer that up to this sheet about there and take that as our sort of first point of reference for where our fold's going to go. So we're going to go, let's go 70 on there. So we take that at 70 millimeters there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a mark there at 70. That's going to be our first point. And then we're going to want to go up this far end, and if we're taking that inside edge where it folds, we're at 36, 37, 37. I think we'll take that to, I think we'll probably be all right at that. I think we'll go at that on 37. Let's go at 38 just to allow us something extra. So we want the length of it. So the length of the whole thing we're dealing with 650. So we go up to here at 650. So we go up there at that. So that's where we're going to go up to. That's how much metal we're going to need. That allows us enough. Let's give us a bit extra. Let's go up to here. Because we've got that extra bit on there, haven't we? So let's not end up too short. We talked about things being too short before, didn't we? So it was a bit of a guesstimate, these things sometimes. Right, I'm going there, I'm going there. Right, so we know we're all right. And we were saying on here we were going at 7. I'm going to take that out to 40 to give us plenty of room to muck about with. So if I go, right, so that's going to be where we're going to fold. That's going to give us that inner edge. So we know from there, now I've got to find where I left that mark. Where did I put that mark? There it is there. So you go from there to here, right. Now I'm going straight up the end of the material because I think we're going to put this in the guillotine and sort it out. So that's going to give us this area there. Now we've got to allow for this material here. Now we weren't taking it off this because it's all short, wasn't it? And we said we were going at, when we was on the car we were measuring it, obviously we're going off the inner edge, but that's fine, we can wrap around from the outside. Now I think we said we was going to go up to 45-ish, wasn't we, to allow us to come over that trim nicely when we were on that one. So I think that's going to allow us plenty of material. I don't think we're going to have a problem with that. I think we'll go at 45. So let's go with that. So there's that one. So let's take that straight across there. So mark that there. And there, that gives us what we want. Okay. Right, next door to the guillotine. Let's go and have a look. Get this chopped off. Follow me. You want to look down through here to see what we've got. So if you can get a shot through there, you'll see we're looking for these lines as we pass it in. So these are our lines. We've got one there, that's where our fold's going to be, that's where our cut's going to be. So if we look down in here, as we pass the material down, I don't know if you can get down, if you can get from above and over. through there where the light's going. So you can see I'm feeding the metal in. There we go. So first line comes up, that's where we're going to put our fold. And the second line comes up is where we're going to cut it. So that's where we want to cut it off. So I can see that end, and then I look up in here, I can see this end. And there we are, we're lined up, we've got what we're looking for. And let's chop that through. There you go. That's our two pieces that we just cut. So we just did that with a guillotine. So what we're going to be left with is nice if it's usable. So we want to cut another one, and it's going to be the same because we're going to make pretty much a mirror of this. So if we laid that on there like that, we're going to end up with sort of a bit of a weird angle left of this plate. However, if we take that and flip it that way and put it on here, we'll end up back with a 90 on here again. So we'll end up with a nice usable piece of plate. You know, so we end up with a nice bit to use here, and we should end up with a 90 on there. So, which is always useful, just to work with a sheet that's square, as it were. So if I put that on there, and mark it, it gives us what we want. Now, I don't actually have to mark it all the way along, because we're looking at either end to see what we want. So I can just mark that bit, and I can mark that bit. And if I feed that back in the guillotine, then true that up to where I want it, and then I can chop through this, and we'll have a nice piece of sheet left over for other jobs in the future. Okay, so right, there we are, off with his head. Just like in Paris in the French Revolution. Mind you, wouldn't get your head in there if you wanted to, so that's just as well, really, isn't it? Right, that's our trims. So let's go and do a bit more marking, then we're going to fold them. We'll probably take a bit off the end in a minute before we fold them, but anyway, we're getting somewhere. That can go back with the other brass stock, and then we'll take a few more markings on these. Right, okay, back next door. Right, we've got to get a bit of shape in this, and for that we're going to use the wheel. So this is a wheeling machine. The Americans have started calling them English wheels because it's a very English thing. The Italians didn't use these. Aston Martin are made with this. All the coach built stuff was done with these. This is pretty old. This is probably pre-war, and I expect it did do service during the war. Spitfires, Lancasters, something like that. You know, aluminium clothed bombers and fighter pilots would have been used with these. What you'd have is you had a great intake of people into the factories. They get sort of 100 lads and lasses together that were going to be inducted into the factory work, because obviously they're gearing up to make as much as they possibly could as quickly as they could, and they'd take them 100 and they'd try a few of them out on it and give them a go and see how they got on. Probably of that 100, maybe 10 of them were up to doing it, could learn how to do it. So they would go ahead and do it. They'd learn it. They'd learn the skills required to use one of these, and they'd have to make things. And they'd be under pressure. There's a war on. They had to really get on with it. But yeah, it's not for everyone. It's quite a difficult skill to master. I can get by, but I'm not. There's people that are seriously talented with these things. I just do bits with them. But it's like anything. If you haven't got access to a wheeling machine, you're never going to learn how to wheel panels. So like you know, you want to play the piano, you ain't got a piano practice on, you ain't going to get any good. So I've got one, and at least I can practice and do stuff, and I can, you know, I can do what I need to do. But there are some seriously talented people out there who use these machines. Anyway, let's have a look at what we've got to do. So yeah, so we're looking at this. So we're going to end up with a fold through here, and that's going to fold up, which is going to give us this shape here, you know, and then we're going to shrink that edge through there, which will help pull it round. And I'm doing all of this so that I can have a nice folded edge there, rather than messing around soldering it, just because that's the way I want to do it, really. It suits my purposes. And so I'm interpreting the way they did it, and I'm finding a way that suits me to do it. So that's what we're doing. So we need some of that on it, some of this profile, you see, so it sort of curls around there. So that's why we're going to be putting it through the English wheel to get that. We're not worrying about trying to get that, because the shrinker will do that as it pulls it round. We're worried about getting that. So that's what I'm working on. We'll probably have to shrink the edge a bit to pull it round to where we want it. But as I say, I need to get that curvature in it. So that's what we're going to do. So that means we've got to pass it through there and try and work that. So what I'm going to do, first things first, I'm going to get rid of this plastic coating, because we can't have that running through there. That won't be any good at all. So we can take the plastic coating off the brass, which will reveal how nice the brass looks. So there we are. Lovely. Right. I'll put that there, and we'll set this up. So we bring the wheel up to where we want it. Now what this will do is it will stretch the metal. Now, as we put the metal through it, will stretch the metal, and that will allow it to raise, which will allow it to create a shape. So if you imagine you wanted to make a bowl, like a wok or something, you'd use it in the middle of here, and it's effectively raise it up as you go. But anyway, that's a different thing. That's we're not making a wok, we're making a trim. But that's the sort of what it does. There's tutorials on wheeling on the internet. You can look them up if you want to know more about it. I haven't got time to explain it all, and I probably haven't really got the words required to explain it properly. So you want to get that so it feeds in there about right. So you need a bit of tension on it, but not too much tension. So that's slipping through. Right, I've got a bit of tension on there. Now, of course, this is a bit odd because it's brass. It's not going to behave like steel, and it won't behave like aluminium. A little bit of dust on there. Let's get rid of that dust. Now, I don't want to go too mad on this, because if we put too much shape in it, we won't get it back out again. Right, so there's our edge. We didn't want to go too much over there because it will distort it all. So we're just working on that edge there. Now that is starting to make shape in there, only just. What I need is a straight edge to show that. So we can see we've got a bit of a gap here. So it's starting to create shape in there. Only a little. So we don't want too much. We can shrink it round. We're really trying to get a sort of start on it, and then we can build more shape into it as we need it. So what we're looking for is that curvature there. So we're looking for, let me see, so we're not looking for a lot, but we need enough to sort of fold it, you know, bring it round back onto that windscreen trim. So yeah, that's what we're looking for. So we give it a bit more, and then we can always pull it round with a shrinker a bit if we want to. But I don't want to do too much shrinking on this, because I don't want to end up with it all crinkly and all those marks we've got to file out, because it will take ages. You know, we're trying to keep this sort of quite smart and true. You know, the less you damage the metal and the less marks you put in it, the less you've got to take out before it's polished and chrome plated. Now we will have a lot of marks on the other face of it, but that's a flat edge, so we should be able to get them out by dressing them out with a hammer and dolly and so on. We'll look at that when we get to that. You sort of lay that in there, we're looking about right. It feels about right. It feels like it sort of sits in there quite nicely, follows that curvature halfway through. I'm going to put a little bit more in this and then I think we're going to be okay. What we'll do is we'll offer it up on the car and we can get a feel for what we're looking at. Right, let's have a look on the car, see roughly what we got. So, we're going to, it's going to sort of do that, isn't it? It's going to sit there and do that. That's what we're doing. We're making that edge up. So it sort of looks about right, doesn't it? It's looking something like it. So what we're sort of trying to get is something that does this, isn't it? Effectively. Now once it's going to, we're sort of really dealing with something like that. So it's going to end up halfway over that trim and curling round there. And it's got to end up sort of doing this shape. That's what we're sort of looking for. So it'll emulate that. But we want this to come over to here, don't we? Which is why we're making it longer. And obviously we've got to cut it here to allow it to do that. So we can't really fit it yet, but you can see we're looking at doing that. That's what we're after. And that's what we're doing. So you can sort of get the idea. I reckon that would sort of do it. So I think we'll put a fold in it now. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to give it a couple more rubs, then we'll put a fold in it, and then we can think about trying to shrink it round to shape. So I think I'm just going to put a couple more rubs in this. You see, I'm just biasing it into the direction I want it in. As I say, I'm not trying to do too much on this face because we want to keep that flat. But I can probably put some more through here as it meets that, you know, to get that a bit nicer. But it's getting there. It's getting there, definitely. Definitely that's shaping up. But it's a lot of sort of just judgment really with these. You've got to guess a lot of it because you've just got to have a feel for it. And as I say, if I put too much shape in here, I'll struggle to get it back out again. And it will sort of tend to do all this wibbly wobbliness. So yeah, a little bit through there I think, and I think we'll do, and I might just, once we've got that edge set, it'll hold it tighter and I can just nip a bit in this in the shrinker there to just pull it over a bit more, and I think that will probably do it. And so I think we'll be all right. What's happening is, because this has got no shape in it at all, it's making it sort of all do that a bit. But that will change when I put the fold in it and start to shrink the edge around it. It will start to naturally curl over. So sort of what we're doing is giving it a bit of bias, giving it, you know, something to work, you know, to help it move around in that direction. But so we don't want to overwork it, and we can't get it in the wheel once we've got that fold in it, which is why we're doing it like this. So, you know, so you've got to, you know, it is a bit of a guess. You know, we're trying to work it out. But yeah, I think we were sort of talking about having to make a bit for that. So what I'd have to do to make this, I've got to do something similar. Then I'll be cutting it along that edge, like that, and then soldering that on. So once that's freed of that metal, this will sort of sit better. But that's what, you know, that's what I'm going to have to do to repair this one, is something similar like that. You know, we'll end up something like that. So it does roughly follow it. So you give it a tiny bit more work, but not much more, and that'll do for now. And then we'll fold it, and then I can start to shrink it round and pull it into shape. We'll probably need to anneal it at some point. I seem to remember I had to anneal the last set I did, because it, you know, you had to do a lot of work here. So let's just do a couple more rubs, and then I think we'll be all right. We'll put a fold in it then. I was showing someone all this brass stuff a little while ago, and you know, I'm quite proud of it. Obviously it's come out well, but you know, they were saying how amazing it is, and I said, you know, it is, you know, it's quite clever stuff, and I'm very proud of what I've made. But you know, you've got to remember, this is you know, this is just sort of stuff that shapes and looks like that. And I said, you know, you've got to remember, there's people out there that make stuff in brass. Now they've got to make a trumpet. Not only has it got to look like a trumpet, it's got to sound like a trumpet. Now I think that's probably a bit cleverer than this, but there we are. I don't make trumpets for a living, just as well really. Right, that'll do. Let's put a fold in it. See, I've brought it over to there a bit more to help it. I think we'll be all right. It feels right. I think we're going to be okay. I think let's try that. I think there's enough shape in that. And so I don't want too much, but that's the trouble, isn't it? Deciding when to stop, isn't it? A couple more rubs, I think. Because I can't get that in here once it's got a fold on it. So if I don't give it enough now, I will be stuck. But if I give it too much, it will tend to pull over too much, which is why it's very difficult to, you know, because we don't know how it's going to behave when it folds over. That's when it's going to be, you know, that's when I'm really going to find out whether I put too much shape in it or not enough. And not enough isn't too bad, because I can use the shrinker a bit. And to a degree, you know, because it's brass and it's got it in here, it should be able to pull it round. But also I want it, you know, fairly smooth. I don't want it too crinkly and too many lines in it. You know, it's got to look quite good. But that's one of the joys of this being chromed, is that, you know, we can linish it up quite a bit. I can't put shape in it because it will go straight through. You know, we can't try and carve the shape into it, because it'll end up so thin, and in some areas it won't work. So we do need to get it about right. Yeah, what do you reckon? Got a bit of curve in it? I think it'll be all right. Yeah, I think that has. I think that's probably about right. Right, let's fold that and see what we got. I think, because it does sort of kick over in the middle, doesn't it? You remember when we were measuring it? It's almost like in the middle it's got to do more of that. So, right, let's fold it, see what we got. Okay, so you're going to want to fold it. Now this is a straight folder, it's only a short one. It's quite a nice one because the bed can drop down on this, so you can do sort of rolls and all sorts of things. So you can see you can put your metal in there, you can actually put bars in here and all sorts. You can drop this bed down and then you can sort of do a roll over it. So it's useful. You've got these little cutouts to allow for a sort of degree of box and pan type work. But anyway, that's a different thing. But yeah, another Edwards machine. Edwards make, you know, really good sheet metal kit. This again is pretty old. You can sort of see the age of it. It'll be, it could be pre-war actually. It could be. You know, the box and plan and the guillotine are definitely from the 60s, or maybe even the 70s. But this is significantly earlier than that. So it's done its time. But you can see how this sort of goes through here. That's how it goes through its arc. So that's why you can drop this bed down, because it goes through this arc rather than a normal hinge. So it's a slightly different machine to normal. But it's a lovely thing. But anyway, so yeah, we're going to feed this in here and put this fold up on it. So we're going to put that in there, fold that up like that, which will give us this. So we want to end up with about that angle. So there we are. That's what we're working on. That's what we're trying to do. So let's get this in here. Get it to where we want it. Now we put some shape in this. Can you see that line is now not straight? See, that's a straight edge. It's there, it touches there, and then it bows out through here. That's because of the shape we put in this. Now we can't do much about that. I'm just going to fold it straight because that's what we want. But yeah, that's sort of interesting the way the metal behaves. That's because this is all stretched here, so it sort of pulled that line over. You know, when I was working it, I was saying about working on this edge because that's where I want, you know, a bit of shape in the corner of this. Well, that's what's happened. It's basically it's done that. It's bent that line round, so it's stretched this all out, which has sort of allowed it to do that. So that's the weird things that happen when you start stretching metal, sheet metal. So when you think about the amount of shape you've got to put into things and bulbous wings and things, you know, that's a good example of where your lines move and how things move, which is why it's very difficult to visualise what's going to happen. It's why it's such a black art, the English wheel, you know, or the wheeling machine, to correct myself, as my mate Mick would tell me. He always says it's the Americans called it that, and because he's stuck out there in California, I think it rubs him up the wrong way some days. But anyway, there we are. He's serious talent with his stuff. He builds Cobras. He used to build D-type Jags. I used to work with him. That's how I learned a lot of this stuff. Well, I learned it all from him, and then I had to practice it and finesse it for years, which is what it takes. You know, it's that well, they say 5,000 hours of something to become a master. Well, I haven't done 5,000 hours on one discipline, so that's the trouble. I still think of myself as more you know, trying to clock them hours out, but I don't think there's enough 5,000 hours left in my lifetime to be master at everything, so I'm just going to have to do the best at some, and that's what we have. So, but you know, I like this stuff, and I've got an empathy for it, so I'll keep at it. Right, so what we're looking at, a bit more than that, don't we? Yep, something like that. So that's it. So what I'm hoping is that as we shrink this round, it'll allow that to curl round a bit more and sort of help it have that bias in it, because at the minute it's flattened it out a bit too much. But yeah, we'll have to go and set the shrinker up, start pulling that round, see what we got. So we've got a long way to go, and we've got quite a lot of material to shrink round to get that, but I've done it before and I reckon we can do it again. But yeah, you can see it gives us a fairly sharp edge, because it's only 1mm brass. It does fold fairly sharp, so I don't think that's going to be too far off that. It's not going to be as sharp as that, but I'm not worried about that. I think it'll be okay. It certainly looks all right on the ones I've done before, and you know, as I say, there's a reason for that. The reason is I don't want to do a solder joint like that. I mean, it was going to go all over the place, the amount of heat distortion in a solder joint there, I would have thought, and then you've got to get it strong enough that it never cracks or splits or anything. So yeah, I think this is the way I'm doing it. Yeah, you know, we'll see. If it doesn't work out, I'll have another go at it. But I did it once, and I reckon that's the way to do it. So let's go and start shrinking it round a bit. Right, I want the shrinker out. This is the one we were using last time. Right, so we get this on the bench, and then we should be able to pull this round quite a bit. There's a long way to go. Let's see what we got. So we might end up with the gas bottles out and annealing it as well, but we'll see about that when we get to it. So, right. So we want to do that with it. So we've got to get this to pull round, haven't we? So we want to start on this edge, start moving it round a bit. Now it's going to move a lot slower than that gutter trim because that was really thin, and we're going to have to get deeper into this edge. I can't just shrink on the very corner of it, but I'll start with the corner, which gives us something to start with, and then we can work up to further up. And then to get deeper into it, I'm probably going to have to use the other shrinker next door, which is the one with the echo jaws that I said about before. And this is going to put a lot of crinkliness in it, so I'll have to dress that all out with a hammer. Well, hammer and dolly. Actually, it won't be on a dolly, it'll be something else. Anyway, I'll get into that in a minute. See, I'm having to push this down a lot heavier this time, a lot more effort into it. Which will mean it'll end up with quite deep shrinker marks in it, which is a bit of a shame really, but that's what it is. Right, so made a start, you see how far we've already come off of straight. So yeah, it's making a start. So yeah, you see we're starting to get a curve on it. And as we're doing that, it's starting to give it a bit of that shape on there, isn't it? It's starting to do that a bit more, which is what we're looking for. So it'll start to give it that. We'll probably have to shrink this edge to try and give it a bit more in a bit. So let's just keep working with the shrinker here. But yeah, we've got to try and keep this fairly flat, but it won't stay flat. You can see it's got dimples in it and divots. It will happen. We can't really odds that. That's going to happen. Now I said about this far end, didn't I, that I don't need to put too much in there. So I think we'll concentrate much more on there. We'll concentrate from there forwards. Sometimes what you can do when you're doing this sort of operation is you can use the shrinker further over and then cut the bit that you've actually shrunk down off. You know, where it's got the worst of the marks on it. Not all of it, because otherwise you'll cut off the thing that's holding it in that shape, but you can do that. But not on this, we're going to keep on like this. Right. So it's doing a bit, but yeah, still got a long way to go. So, I'll try and get some more into this, and then we'll have to go next door, I think, and use the other one. This is where a powered machine makes all the difference. But anyway, I ain't got a powered machine. So this will be starting to work harden quite a bit, so we might have to anneal it in a little while. But let's try and get as far as we can without doing that. Right, so we're sort of starting to get there, aren't we? See, we've got quite a bit to go, but we've made a start. We have made a start. Now obviously this edge is thinner here, so it's going to be a lot easier to pull this round up this end. When you get to here you can't, because we're shrinking there but we're not shrinking that bit. Although obviously this is going to be cut off that part, isn't it? But here you can see it's raising it there. You know, that's where we're going to use next door, the one with the echo jaws. We can get in deeper and we'll get rid of some of them with that. And we'll try and pull this around as much as we can. But you can see how it's crinkling all up. And we're going to have to dress all that out. And we'll get to that in a bit. Yeah, you see this has gone a bit baggy, but we might be able to get that round a bit with the with shrinking this edge a bit, which is, you know, why luckily we've got a little bit of excess on here, not much, but we might be able to get some of that out. It's got some shape in it, but I think we need to shrink this edge a bit. But what I'm going to do, as you can see all this wibbliness here, all this stuff, I'm going to try and get that in the echo jaws next door, in the other shrinker, and see if we can get rid of some of that. And in doing that, it will start to allow this to close up more, pull this here, which will give us more curvature. But yeah, I don't want to go too far because it's going to be a sod to get it back the other way. But let's pop next door and have a look at that one. So this has got echo jaws in it. This is the one I said about before. But you can only get it in, you know, where it's got this return on it. I can't get in that far, but I can do a bit. I have to do that with a hammer, I think. But if we start with this, we should be able to pull some of this round a bit more. So I can get in deeper into this area a bit more, which will hopefully get rid of some of that crinkliness. That's the plan. That's what I'm trying to do here. So this come off a guy called Carl, and he's the UK's main man for making Ferrari Dino panels. So sort of funny sort of way how these things go. It ended up with Mr. Fiat Dino, but there we are. Of course, you probably don't know much about the Fiat Dino work I do because we've been doing all this Maserati stuff, but I do a lot of stuff on Fiat Dinos as well, which is for another day. But they're quite different because they're not hand constructed like these. As I say, they were made by with the fight and the might of Fiat, so they're far more productionised than this sort of stuff. Whereas the Ferrari Dinos were handmade. They were all made. Scaglietti made all them by hand. So yeah, they were quite a different thing entirely. But anyway, enough of that. Right, getting a bit nearer, aren't we? But I'm not sure. It's hardening up. You might want to nail it soon. Let's see how we get on. I'll put a bit more in here. So let's see if I can put a bit more around this bit. See, this is where a powered one would be lovely because you just pushed in. It's just running all the time, you know, and you just start feed it in. You've got two hands, you can help bias it. It's a wonderful thing, you know. An Eckhold is sort of, yeah, proper Eckhold craft former. It's on my wish list centre, and I've been very good all year. Don't expect I'll get one. You know, they're probably too heavy to go on the sleigh, to be honest, isn't it? Even if I was worthy. Right, you see, we're getting there. It's shaping up. So sort of from here onwards we need to pull it around a bit more. So I'll get a bit more work on here. sort of getting there. See more shape in that area. You've got to pull it round here. You've got a lot more shrinking there to do. You get not too bad there, not too bad there, but we've got to get it through here. So all in that area there. But yeah, I'm wondering whether we anneal this first. I might try a bit harder and then we'll have a look at that. Okay, let's get next door and try the other shrinker for a bit. Right, so we've got a bit more on this. So I pulled it round a bit more, we're getting there. So that's what we're making, isn't it? The one that's got the short bit on it. But these are sort of back to back. They're about the same curvature, aren't they? As in that way, the way we're shrinking it. So we can use that against this one, the same, to see roughly what we got. And then we're not looking too bad. You can see we've sort of got our curvature quite well. And we can cut it down through here, we can back mark it through there, cut all that down to shape, and we'll be looking good. And we can try it on the car. Now, you know, that doesn't look too bad to me. Let's just try and get that about right. So we're very nearly there. You know, we've got a bit of bagginess in here, but we might cut that off, if you see what I mean. We'll be cutting that through there. So I think we could start clamping that together. Maybe have a go at back marking that. And then we might have a go at trying and fitting it on the car. So yeah, you can see what we got. I don't think that's too bad. Yeah, so I reckon we're all right with that. But what I think we should do before we get too into that, because it will move around, we want to get rid of some of these, don't we? These great big divots in it, get rid of them crinkliness. So we're going to have to do something about that. So if I put those to one side, and we'll have a go at that. So we've got to get right into this and get it out, haven't we? So best thing to do with that is iron it. There you go. We use this beautiful old French iron I picked up in France about 20 years ago at an old flea market when I was staying at my lovely uncle's place. My uncle and auntie have got this beautiful place near Le Mans, and I've managed to be lucky enough to stay there a couple of times, and went to a local flea market and I found that. So there, you know, you can take the boy out of the workshop, but you can't take the workshop out the boy. It doesn't matter where I go, I'm looking for stuff that will come in handy. But you can see how that's going to work, you know, just like that. No, what you're going to do is we're going to put that there. That will fit inside the curvature like that, just right. And then we can dress that out. All these, we can dress them out. You know, suitable hammer, maybe a flipper, we'll see, but that's the idea. But to do that, we'll attach that to the bench. So it's got a nice flat edge there. So what I've done earlier, I made this so I can fit it on here. So it'll sit on there like that. We use a couple of exhaust clamps, and then they can help bolt it on. Like that. Silly thing is, Elizabeth's place is down by Le Mans, but I've never been to watch the races. I keep thinking we should do one day. We'll see, maybe that's a thing. Maybe I should go down there and watch the races, and especially now they do the Le Mans Classic. That'd be quite something, wouldn't it? And maybe one day, but we'll see. Oh, I've got washers on. I want these washers on here, otherwise what'll happen is it will bite into the bench too much and it won't clamp it nicely. So let's get this on. Yeah, so these sort of things is what I was saying, like that bolster the other day. It's exactly, you know, repurposing these old tools. They're made of nice metal. They can be, you know, we can do stuff with them. You don't have to go to France to find an old iron, I'm sure. But anyway, I could have turned that into some silly joke, but I'm not going to. Anyway, right. So it's got a nice face on it. Let's try. So I think we can use that, and we'll try and dress some of these out as we go, and it might tend to shrink it a bit more. That's helping. Needs a bit more than that, but it's helping, isn't it? So yeah, we can get them a bit better. But yeah, we might need to, yeah, I don't know, I don't really want to anneal this because we're going to lose some of the, you know, it's not going to be as hard as it is, and I want to keep some of the tension in it. So yeah, you're getting there. You're getting there. I mean, there's going to need a lot more work than that to get it just right. But that's given us an idea of what we're working with. Yeah, okay. So, let's see if that's changed its shape at all. Put that one up to it. It hasn't made a lot of difference, that's quite nice, so I think that's all right. Now I think if I clamp these two together, and then I can take some of the excess off this and we can try it on the car. So that's what I'm going to do. And then you can see sort of how we're looking at that contour, sort of following that one, being a mirror of it, which it isn't quite, it's a bit baggy, but let's see what it like, you know, I don't want to mess around with that yet till we try it on the car. So I'll get a couple of clamps so I can hold that together. It ain't bad. I think that'll do for that. Let's mark this. Let's use a stripey because it doesn't have to be that exact at this stage. So. So remember, we're going to come up, we're still talking about having enough here to do that, so, and we're going to need to relieve it through here, but we'll probably have to allow a bit extra for that because that's got to curl round here, hasn't it? But we're going to have to take that edge off because otherwise we can't trial fit this. So I'm going to go in something like that. It's a bit heavier than, you know, a bit more than we need, but as I say, we don't want to take too much off yet. And then that would be the mirror of that. So what we'll do is we'll go across here like that to give us that bit. And then we're going to have to take a bit off of here, otherwise we're never going to be able to get it to tuck under the gutter trim. That's that. So get some snips and you get that down to size. Now we can always, this is going to be a bit rough because we're going to want to finesse this later, but I want to get it down to size to see what we got. So this will probably need a bit more. So, you know, that's why I'm just getting this a bit quick. You can feel how work hardened this is as I'm going through this metal. It's tough to cut, and that's because it's gained a bit of thickness where I've shrunk it together, but it's also work hardened it quite significantly. So it feels, you know, tougher. It feels, you see, spring in it? So it's got lot, you know, so it's work hardened. That's what's put it, you know, that springiness into it, and exactly why it's getting a bit bit tough to cut. But that doesn't really matter, I'm not too worried about that. Right, let's try not to take my finger off whilst I'm about it. Right, that's that. Right, up into there like that. Let's get across here to get rid of some of this quickly. You see how quick, easy that cuts compared to it? How smooth it is? That's what I was saying about it not being so work hardened. So, you know, even this has been through the wheel, hasn't it? So it will be work hardened to a degree, but it's nothing like that edge where I've been shrinking it like that. Which is why I'm going to have to do quite a bit of work to get them little dings and crinkles and stuff out of it. So, you know, we could be into a bit of a fight to get that flat. But that's, you know, that's what it is. I chose to do it this way. It's probably why they didn't do it this way at the factory, to be honest. They probably started this way and realised it takes too long. And then they got good at soldering. And that was it. But you probably found one bloke, you know, it was his job to do all the soldering, you know, and he probably got very quick at it. Bit like I was saying about the guys using the wheel back in the, you know, back in the war. You'd find people that are good at it, and that's become their job. You know, which is the way industry should work, really. Way life should work, really, isn't it? Right. So we're that was that one we was looking at, isn't it? So yeah, so we're getting there. We're getting there. We've got a lot more material on it for a reason. You remember the reason? It's because that's too short. And then we want to bend that one round, won't we, to follow it a bit. But what we do, let's give this a quick go in here and see, you know, this is where we can start trying to see what it'll fit like. Right. So, quite nice there, very baggy here, not too bad up there. I better take a bit more off that so it'll sit nicer. Right, so we ain't got a lot in this, have we? We're already a bit short. That should have been more down here. I think I've done something silly there. Oh well, we'll have to work that out. Should have looked harder rather than gabbling on whilst we're filming. Right, I've also had an eye on the time, knowing that we're running out of time. So yeah, that's probably not helped. Right, okay, that's good. Not happy with that bottom edge. I wanted that further down here, and we might have to address that. And obviously we've got to pull this round more. So that's got to be shrunk round there a bit. We've got to gain a bit on here. So what I might do, just try and shrink that lightly a bit there to see if that's going to give us allow that to curl round a bit. Obviously pulling here is going to tend to affect that edge as well. So this is where the sort of real finesse comes into this stuff. Yeah, so we've got to get that right round. Well, that's what I said about putting more shape in the wheel at the beginning. I haven't put enough shape in it really. It's getting a bit better, isn't it? So that's starting to get a bit better. And I say we've got more than we want here, so we're going to probably trim it back to there, and back to there. But I'm annoyed at myself here because I've gone too short. There we go. That's another little. Might have another little tutorial on how to add a bit onto this without it showing too badly. But anyway, look, we're getting there. We're getting there. A bit baggy there, isn't it? So we'll just try a little touch of the shrinker on that. Right, well, it isn't too bad. And bear in mind that's straight off the bat, isn't it? That's straight off the bat in probably, oh, I don't know, just over an hour's time, a couple of hours work. I mean, yes, the last 10% can take 90% of the time. That's the problem. So yeah, you don't make these in an hour. When you're making lots of them, Uncle Giuseppe back at the old Maserati factory, I'm sure he could, you know, knock these out all day long and be very good at them. But he'd probably had a few years practice at just making these. And bear in mind, he was probably making trim on other cars before that. And he did come from the Motor Valley in Italy, so he could have worked on, you know, could have worked for all different sort of coach builders. Yeah, well, we're getting there. We're getting there. Oh, he's not my uncle, by the way. He just looks like he's got to be someone's favourite uncle, hasn't he? Because he would be, wouldn't he? If you had an uncle who worked at Maserati, he'd be your favourite uncle, wouldn't he? But anyway, there we are. I don't think that's too bad. Do you want to have a look around this side? Get an idea of how it fits. See, I think we, you know, we're so nearly there. But you know, I think we can continue with this, and I reckon we can salvage this. I reckon it's going to be all right. A bit more work. And so this is what I mean. I should have put maybe more shape in there on the wheel, but we might be able to gain that just by doing that, really. These are supposed to have a bit of bias on them, so that when they go on, it pulls down naturally onto that edge, if you see what I mean. You know, it's supposed to have a bit of sort of ping to it back, you know. So it might be that we're sort of not far off. Obviously, you need the door tops on here, really, to see how they fit against it. So, you know, we're not really at that stage. This is why I put the windscreen rubber in the other week, so that we had this to work with and that to work with. But I reckon we can do something here. But I'm not entirely sure. Time I cut that back there, I've either got to let a bit in here. I mean, time I get that back to there, yeah, there you go. Pays to look, done it properly. Measure twice, cut once. Oh well, repent at leisure, eh? There we are. Not to worry. Right. I'm not getting them snips out again until I've had a really good look at this, but I think we're very nearly there. And we'll have a look what I can do. It might be we've got to let a bit back into that. I don't know what I did there. I was obviously being a bit silly. That's what I did. I went off at the wrong angle, didn't I? Well, sometimes you learn as much by seeing someone doing something wrong as you do. Look at that. What a pillock. There we are. Hey, well, I'll show you how to resurrect that next week. How about that? Or perhaps I just made a new one. That'll do for tonight. Okay. Yeah, let's say goodnight and sign off.